Have you ever started something you felt sure God was leading you to do, only to have resistance show up almost immediately? Not later, not after success, but right at the beginning. Criticism, discouragement, doubt, sometimes from others, sometimes from within. And in that moment, a quiet question forms. Did I hear God wrong? The book of Ezra speaks directly into that moment, because as soon as the rebuilding began, opposition appeared. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Ezra Blueprint series. I'm Coach Sandra, life coach for ladies and your truth mindset strategist. In this series, we are exploring a biblical pattern for restoring lives, renewing minds, and guiding others back to truth. In our last episode, we talked about why worship must come first. Today, we are stepping into something that every person who follows God will eventually face: opposition. And what do we do when it appears? As the people began rebuilding, they did not go unnoticed. Ezra 4 shows us that opposition came quickly. At first, it appeared subtle. People offered to help, but their intentions were not aligned. When their offer was declined, resistance grew stronger. Discouragement followed. Accusations were made. Work was delayed. Not all support is aligned support. Sometimes opposition begins disguised as agreement. This is important because many people expect opposition to look obvious, but often it begins quietly. Opposition is not random. In Ezra, the rebuilding represented something significant: the restoration of worship, the return of truth, the reestablishment of God's presence among his people. And whenever something moves towards truth, resistance often follows. Opposition is often a sign that something meaningful is being built. This does not mean everything hard is from God, but it does mean that difficulty does not automatically mean you are off track. Resistance does not always mean stop. Sometimes it means stay steady. Ezra shows that opposition does not just affect circumstances, it affects people. Discouragement entered the picture. Fear began to grow. Momentum slowed. The work stopped for a season. This is where many people can relate because opposition rarely feels like a theological concept. It feels personal. Opposition often speaks to your emotions before it challenges your actions. You begin to wonder, maybe I am not ready. Maybe this is not for me. Maybe I misunderstood. The greatest threat of opposition is not what it does around you, but what it tries to convince you within you. This is one of the most important places where Christian life coaching becomes deeply valuable. Because when opposition appears, clarity often becomes clouded. People begin to second guess themselves, lose confidence, pull back from what they once felt called to do. A Christian coach does not remove opposition, but they help bring clarity in the middle of it. A Christian coach helps someone ask, what is actually true here? What is God saying? Not just what am I feeling? What is the next faithful step? Christian coaching does not eliminate resistance. It strengthens your ability to stand in truth within it. This is powerful because many people do not need less opposition. They need more clarity. In Ezra, the work did stop for a time, but it did not end. This is important because many people think that a pause means failure. But in Scripture, we often see something different. A pause is not always a sign of quitting. Sometimes it is a season of preparation. Later, through encouragement and renewed focus, the people returned to the work. They did not abandon the assignment. They returned to it. God's purposes are not canceled by delay. This is especially important for women who feel called to guide others, because this is often where they step back. not because they are incapable, but because opposition feels unfamiliar. You may have felt hesitation, self-doubt, uncertainty about stepping forward, and quietly thought, maybe this is not for me. Many potential leaders step back not because they lack ability, but because they misinterpret resistance. God often prepares leaders in hidden places, and part of that preparation is learning how to remain steady when things feel uncertain. The presence of resistance does not disqualify your calling. When we view opposition through truth, something shifts. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? We begin to ask, what is God strengthening in me through this? Opposition can either discourage you or develop you, depending on how you respond. If you are in a season where something feels difficult, where resistance has appeared, where clarity feels less certain, take heart. Ezra reminds us that God sees, God knows, God is still working. When God's hand is on your life, opposition may slow the process, but it cannot stop his purpose. Ladies, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a time when opposition made you question something, but later you saw how God was still working? In our next episode of the Ezra Blueprint, we will explore one of the most powerful leadership patterns in this book: seek, do, teach. Thank you for joining me today. And until next time, may you continue seeking truth, standing firm, and walking faithfully.